Mariel did the 23andMe, and then she found a sibling through that whole experience. That's like, the story is actually pretty crazy. Like, she got pinged a message a while ago, but she never checked her 23andMe. And this person was messaging her, and he's like, the fuck? This person says like they're related to me. They go through this whole, wow, this actually story is pretty crazy. I'm surprised I never said this story. But in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Genius Brain Podcast. We are back in the studio, and I just hit the mic. I'm sorry about that. Dude, it feels good to be back at the studio. Yeah. And we have Ed Park, VP, once again.
Hello, what's up?
Dude, I got to tell you this. I feel like this is such a funny thing for my parents to say before I came here. So just in general before, like, you know, because I've had a kid, there's a lot of great stuff with the grandparents, but there's also a lot of fighting, right? Because they always want to put their opinion about stuff.
The old school way.
Which they've already do in my life. And now that there's a kid there, they want to interject, which we'll go into later. But my mom, in the car when I came here, she said like the most offensive shit to me that hurt my feelings. We were on the phone, and I send my parents photos of the kid through this like this digital frame. And so she calls me, and she goes, man, he is like the most perfect baby. He's so cute and adorable. He goes, you've been really, really blessed. And I'm like, yeah, I feel that way too. We're like connecting. We're having a good time. And she goes, you know, when your brother was born, before he was born, we had a really, really hard time. Like nothing was really going our way. And when your brother was born, everything kind of turned around. He was a blessing to us. And I was like, dude, that's amazing. And then she goes, when you were born, dude, I thought you were a curse. She goes, nothing would go right. I'm like, yo, what the fuck, man? Like, just say the good part. You don't have to say the other things. She goes, man, money was freaking tough. You wouldn't listen. I thought that you were a curse. Like, what have I done with my life? Yeah. And then she just goes and she goes, so what did you eat this morning? I'm like, dude, that shit was hella hurtful.
So you didn't like me when it came out?
Yeah, I was like, dude, what the fuck, man?
So honestly, I feel that way about my mom and I. Because, you know, I told you about how my dad wasn't there when all three of us were born, right? In particular, when my mom was pregnant with me, my dad disappeared. Like, where the fuck is he? Even his parents didn't know, right?
That's amazing.
And then, you know, she said one day she's driving through K-Town, you know, and this is 1984, 85, driving through K-Town. And she sees his car on a lift at a mechanic shop, right? He's getting work done on the car. So she's like, oh, this is where this motherfucker is. And so she chills by around the corner and waits for him to come back to pick up his car, right? And he comes back with another pregnant girl.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And then I was like, wait, what? And they're holding hands and they walk back to get the car. And then she had also called his parents, you know, my grandparents, to come. And they came in. Everybody's just in fucking shock, right? But the crazy thing is right then and there, like, because my grandparents did really well back in the day. Like, she said my grandfather pulled out just this thick wad of cash and gave it to the girl and said, go away. And she went away, never heard from her, and then forced my dad to come back home.
Dude, you have a half-sibling somewhere.
I have a half-sibling somewhere in K-Town, dude.
That's fucking
crazy. Because you look around and see somebody that looks like me.
That's like, fucking crazy.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, I've wanted to do 23andMe in hopes maybe that guy did it too, or that girl. But then again, 23andMe just went bankrupt.
Oh, that's right.
So they're just going to sell your fucking DNA information to whoever.
Let me tell you something.
I'm so glad I didn't sign up for that.
I didn't do that shit either.
Yeah, I'm just Korean. I'll accept that.
Thank God I'm lazy as shit.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking lazy. Because I have the 23andMe kit at the house still.
You never sent it.
It's still in the plastic. It's still there. And then I saw it today. I was like, well, they went under. I threw it away.
There's got to be a private way to do that shit, right?
So you know what the interesting thing is? Like, Mariel did the 23andMe, and then she found a sibling through that whole experience. That's like, the story is actually pretty crazy. Like, she got pinged a message a while ago, but she never checked her 23andMe. And this person was messaging her, and he's like, the fuck? This person says like they're related to me. they go through this whole. Wow, this actually story is pretty crazy. I'm surprised I never said this story, but Mariel's talking to me through this whole thing, right? And this person actually lives pretty close to us in California. And she has been looking for her family for a long time. And it's like this thing of like an identity thing of like, I guess she grew up pretty like whitewashed, right? And I'm not saying that in a negative sense. That's just a phrase that we grew up with. So she's looking for her cultural identity, right? So she's looking for family. She doesn't know her family. She knows of her dad, and her whole story is her whole story. I'm not going to say that. But either way, Mariel finds out that they are actually related by blood.
Whoa.
And so they connect, and we actually flew to where they lived to go meet them.
Yeah.
And then we started connecting. Here's the crazy shit, right? So Mariel's dad has a best friend. I met him since we first started dating. We were talking it up, chopping it up, or whatever. And she goes, I have a brother. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then we saw a photo of him. I'm like, wait, that's your dad's best friend. We're like tripping the fuck. I was like, that's your brother? And they look alike. Right. I'm like, yeah. And then she was like, the last time she saw him was at her wedding, but she lost contact with him since, and that's her only connection to a real family member. Doesn't know where he is. For some reason, he doesn't contact her. So we asked her dad, it's like, did you know that, because we called him Samchun, right? But we know that they're not blood related.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's, he has a sister. He goes, her dad goes, yeah, I know. We're like, Barry goes like, what? What do you mean you know? He's like, you didn't. He goes, oh yeah, he's actually related to us. He was like, you just told us he's your best friend. He's like, oh no, we're actually related. And Mary's like, what the fuck is going on? And the funny thing is too, he never told us that he's actually related. So Mariel they're like, what's wrong with both of you? Why would you never tell us? They're like, you only told us that's your friend. You never said that was like an actual relative.
That's like an old school Korean thing where they just keep that shit under wraps. Like, I didn't know my dad had a twin brother, a long lost twin brother, until I was 16. And I've met him so my dad drops me off at the airport in SeaTac. And this is before 9/11, so he takes me all the way to the gate, right? I say bye to my dad, fly fucking 13 hours, however long it is, to Korea, get out of the gate, and there's my dad again. Yeah. His twin, right? Except he has like green eyes, like very light brown, so it's almost green. I'm like kind of jealous, like, why didn't I get that shit, right?
What an interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I'm like, that it wouldn't have changed anything if you told me I had an uncle in Korea.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, he has a bunch of half siblings in Korea. There's a whole bunch of fucking cousins that I'd never known or met.
Oh, that's pretty insane.
Yeah. And so I'm talking to my mom, like, why didn't you just tell me this, right? Why don't you just tell us? There's just like, feel this deep shame for out of wedlock shit. And it's like, we don't give a fuck.
Dude, it's pretty nuts too. Because like, I wish I could let you guys know about her personal life story, but her personal life story was fucking nuts, dude. Because she's also older.
Yeah.
And then she also grew up in Los Angeles at the time too. So her stories about how her life turned out after like all the stuff that she went through, like, half siblings and all this other stuff too for her. Yeah. It's fucking insane. Because also too, you guys have to know, like, K-Town at the time, she's a lot older than us. K-Town at the time was fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So her stories are pretty fucking insane, dude. And like listening to what she went through in terms of like a lot of like, I would say impoverished gang shit.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I'm like listening to her talk about it so casually. I'm like, dude, that's nuts, man. Yeah. Like I couldn't imagine going through what she did. So she has a lot of like personal stuff that she has to kind of work through. And then one of the things I was telling her was like her, and I see this a lot with that generation. There's like two paths that generation goes through, right? It's number one, and we know these type of Korean people where anytime anything comes up of American person mistreating an Asian person, dude, they get riled up, R.I.P. to Asian Don, you know what I mean? They're the Asian Don crew.
Yeah.
Anything they get fucking, you know what I mean? Or they go to the other route of they find their Korean pride later in life, right? And she found her Korean pride later in life. And now like her conversation that I was having with her was like, she's a lot older, so out of respect, I'm very careful about how I speak to her. And then she was just like, oh yeah, I don't know what it is to be Korean. And I'm like, that's a nonsense thing. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of looking at culture and like your identity as like a monolith, right? Like
Yeah.
in order to be a Korean person, you have to eat this food, say this type of
Right.
thing.
You don't eat kimchi, and some people are just have adverse effects to, gochu. Yeah. No-jang.
My dad doesn't eat kimchi, you know that?
Bro, and I bet he got a lot of shit.
Hell yeah, he doesn't like it. He's Korean as fuck. And I only noticed that recently. Because my mom's making all this kimchi and we're eating stuff and I noticed like, 아빠 김치 안 먹어? She goes, I never ate kimchi. I'm like, what the fuck?
You're looking back like through the years. Like, what?
Shit fucking clicked. I was like, oh, that's right. I never saw you like eat kimchi.
Because kimchi is like so closely tied to Korean culture and identity. We even got pissed at China for trying to take that as part of their cultural heritage. It's like, what are you guys doing? What?
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, man. Like, just like that generation of like trying to figure out who they are. And I'm very like, I guess for me, when somebody mentions their cultural identity and they attribute it to things that people say that if you do this, you're Korean.
Right.
That's just casual conversation.
Yeah.
Like if you're a Korean, she was born in Korea too, by the way. It's like you're Korean. Like it's just your identity is what you grew up with, right? And the Korean American identity is so different compared to like the Korean identity, which we've talked about, and people don't seem to understand that.
Oh yeah. When I was in Hawaii doing my YWAM, the DTS stuff, there are the Korean Americans in that school, and then there are the Koreans. And everybody on campus is like telling us like we ought to do shit together kind of thing, but we're so fucking
Hella different.
Yeah, it's like we don't know what to do or talk about. They behave completely differently as Christians too, right? Like even as Christians, Koreans behave differently, and Korean American. Well, the funny thing is, if you go to a DTS base and there's that means discipleship training school, like for missions, and the Korean American kids there are there because their parents forced them to go because they're bad kids.
That's true. That's right.
It's either you're a bad kid or you're older, you're post college, and you already finished school, and now you're doing your calling.
Yeah.
And then there's Koreans who are just devout in and out. They wake up before anybody to do early morning prayer type shit. Yeah. So it's like we'll defend you if we see you get bullied or whatever. Yes, we're the same, but we're not gonna walk and talk together and for everything.
Yeah, that's what. Dude, that's so funny because remember I told you that story when I went to this thing in Riverside in the Moreno Valley area it was an event every weekend, once a month called Gethsemane, right?
Right.
And then there was that Korean fob that grabbed my shoulders and asked me if he could pray for me. And I've never been prayed for like this, where he took me down to my knees, right? Thank God he went to his knees too. And he grabs me by my shoulder and starts speaking in tongue and just spitting all over me.
Oh, God.
And then my buddy Daniel Wu brought me to Gethsemane, right? And he knew I was Christian, but I wasn't this
Not
type
like
of Christian.
that, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I just remember being, and this guy's just, like just spitting all over me. And I'm like mortified. And then, Daniel's praying and he kind of opens one eye, looks over, and he sees my face. I'm just,
Right.
dude, this guy just.
Some people like just can't. I don't know. There's like some kind of line crossing too when it comes to Christians like that. When especially when they have the gift, quote unquote, of prophecy, and they'll say some shit like, my friend had heard this thing where some guy who has a prophetic gift was like, "I'm sorry your father treated you so terribly, but God the Father in heaven loves you." And he's like, "You don't fucking know me or my dad." His dad is like a high up executive within the mission organization.
That's hella funny, dude. That is so fucking funny.
But it's because he's brown, he has dreads, right? And so he assumed he was just like this Hawaiian native kid, But he's Indian. His dad is an Indian missionary on this Hawaiian base. So the other thing is this white quote unquote prophet was just assumed because he's a Hawaiian he had a bad father.
That's hella funny, dude.
You don't have prophecy, you have prejudice.
Yeah. Dude, he just seems like one black kid. He goes, "I'm so sorry. All you eat is a fried chicken." He's a white guy though, huh?
Yeah,
let's say he's a Korean guy. Like, all you ate was fried chicken your whole life.
Yeah.
Watermelon. There's so much other nutritious foods out there.
The Lord wants to gift you with so much more options. Like,
why did you only eat sticky buns? It's like, yo, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
That's hella funny, man.
Yeah.
What the fuck was he thinking?
I don't know, man. Like, I have so many stories like that, right? Like, okay, this is the weirdest shit that I never made publicly, but I think I have that, right? I don't think it's prophecy because there's one thing is predicting the future, and then there's another thing called like the gift of knowledge. Have you heard of that?
No.
So, like one time, here's a few examples. Like I don't like bringing this up because it's kind of freaky, but I'm praying over somebody, and then in my head, it's just like, tell this person that they were never alone. Tell this person they were never alone, and Jesus was always with them. So I'm like, okay, hey, I think God wants you to know that you were never alone, and Jesus was with you. And they start bawling, right? And then when they're done sniffing up, they're like, yeah, I grew up completely alone, only child. Both my parents are doctors. They make a lot of money. We live in a big mansion, but they just left me at home, and they were just at work, and I'm home alone, like all fucking day, right? And then me saying that was like, no, Jesus was with her when she was playing alone by herself, and I don't know about that, and then I hear things like, oh, that could just be like mentalist shit, like cold reading.
Yeah.
I never learned how to do that.
Yeah.
So like another time, it would be like at a youth retreat. So basically, I'll give you this example.
Ooh, that's so weird.
Yeah, all these kids like got confirmed, right? So their baptism class and all of that, and then they have to go and give a testimony, right? And this is in front of all the parents. So mind you, I told you our church has like 1,000 people in the sanctuary, and one by one they go up to read their testimony, and it's translated in Korean, and they're told to bring up the teacher or mentor who influenced you, and one by one they're calling me up to stand by them, and they're like, and then at this retreat, Edward teacher prayed for me, and then he said this exact same thing that was on my heart, and I'm like, hey yo, I didn't know. Yeah. I was just praying, and they're like, yeah, like I went up to one kid and I was like, in my head it was just like, tell him that there's nothing he can do to make me love him more or less. I'll love him forever. So I repeat that to him. Same, he just starts bawling. And later he was telling me, like in his prayer, like that, he was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, am I a sinner? Am I doing wrong? Like, do I have to be a missionary? Like, do you love me? How do I make you love me more? That's what he was praying before. And then I just showed up out of nowhere to say, hey, man, he says he loves you. Yeah. No more, no less. He'll always love you,
It'd be so funny if it was just like anything. You say, hey, do you know where the bathroom is? I have to pee.
Yeah. Dude, I've heard stories of like that too, where somebody's like, I am so lost. God, tell me where to go. And then he just follows in his head. It says, take a turn, take this left, take a right, and whatever. And then he makes his way out of where
there are certain stories when I hear where sometimes it feels like people are forcing like connections, right? Which is one of the things that I have a little bit of a pet peeve with, right? There's a podcast that I see clips of, and it's just like they're stretching God's connection to their life so hard, it's unreal. Like if they were stretching out a pasta, it'd be see-through. Like, it's like, dude, come on, right? Yeah. It would. It's you'll see a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I would say it's very like young New Age Christian. Like they just got into the faith, right? They're like, okay, so I was driving my car. And then when I was driving out, and I think what happens is they pick up this lingo from the pastors that they listen to, and they apply it into their lives. So when they speak, they want to speak very prophetically.
Right.
And I was driving by and I saw this leaf, and this leaf reminded me of this time I saw this thing on National Geographic about a leaf cutter ant. You know what I mean? And the leaf cutter ant works so diligently without knowing what their purpose is.
Yeah.
Should I be more like the leaf cutter ant? It's like, in terms of my relationship with God, God gives us, it's like, Jesus.
Amen. Just stick to your own thoughts. That sounds like some wild tangent where your brain goes. It's like, yeah, you can figure that out.
Yeah, you know? Like at the moment when they talk like that, it's like, do I have a tomato so I could throw it at you? Boo!
Someone's up there giving their testimony. Get off the stage!
It's me. Shut the fuck up! But shit. It's like one of those things. And then there's people where I hear like stories like you.
Yeah.
where it's just like, oh, that's if it, there's always a chance of coincidence, but with coincidence, that's pretty nuts. You know
it
what
just
I mean?
keeps happening.
Yeah.
And it was one by another kid. Like, I remember I told this kid, like, I was like, hey, it's just because it was in my head. I couldn't, it's like this impulse, like, I can't just hold it and not tell him. I'll feel like shit, you know? So I started practicing, like, okay, trusting that I don't know if I want to say, call it an instinct or if it's literally God. I went up to him and I was like, hey, like, you are a shining light to God, you know? And then he's looking at me wide-eyed and he's like, because he was off in his own corner saying, I want to be a shining light to you. I want to be a shining light to you. I want to be a shining light to you. And then I just walked up to him like, hey, man, you're a shining light.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I didn't know, you know, but it's just in my fucking head. So, I had that split with the church. I've actually had someone tell me, like, I'm intimidated to be around you because I feel like you're going to expose all this sin, in me. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
But there was one instant where I went up to her. I was like so uncalled for. I'm like, this is not okay, but I couldn't help.
Yeah.
And I went up to this girl. She was like 15 at the time. I said, hey, are you pregnant? And she just fell to the ground crying. And so I had to pick her up, take her to another room, and call my girlfriend at the time because I didn't want to be alone with her.
Yeah.
And then, like, and she turned out to be
pregnant. Shit, that's fucking crazy.
Like, I don't know why God wanted me to expose that, quote unquote. But I think it was because at the time she was just hiding it and she was in deep fear. And it was like, hey, let's do something about this.
Damn, dude, that's kind of like a crazy superpower. I definitely never had that connection, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have none of that shit.
Well, the purpose is like to let you know, hey, God knows this about you because he loves you.
Yeah.
He knows your inside and outside, like, and he's not out here to like embarrass you and humiliate you. No, he wants you to know, like, he knows these things because he loves you, right? And, okay, so, like I said, I split from the church. I just got treated like shit and all that. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that shit, dude. I'm never going to do it, right? Cut to 2 years later, I moved to LA. We're living together in K-Town. Get this DM from this cute girl, like asking me about YouTube shit and video shit. And I'm like, and she wants to meet up and have lunch. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that.
Why not?
She's cute, right? And then we're sitting there, we're talking about this and that. And then she's asking me all these questions about YouTube. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep it platonic because I don't want to be a creep now, right? And then she was like, I'm actually amazed that you came to meet me. I didn't think you would. And I'm like, why? She goes, because I'm Japanese and you're Korean. You hate us, right? And I was like, yes and no.
Yeah.
But I was like, I told her like a bit of a testimony. Like, I did used to hate Japanese people because I grew up with my older hyungs and
They kind of embedded that.
that we're supposed to hate Japanese because of what they did to us, right? But it's like, not us.
Yeah.
It didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
But then we were just taught that bias against them. And, at the end of my missionary trip to Japan, it was literally like, man, why did God send me out there? And I realized that when I was I was literally underneath a house picking up this fucking dead, fishy smelling muck and oil, and cleaning it. And then I was like, oh, like this is like Jesus washing the foot of his enemies. And or like even the disciples, he knew that they were going to betray him. And he washed their feet and served them. And then I just felt like God was telling me, I don't want you to hate Japanese people anymore. So I sent you here to serve them in their darkest hour,
Like,
and I'm like sitting there crying underneath this house, gathering up this muck and mud, right?
and then a Japanese person comes to you like, get out of my country. It's like,
No.
fuck you.
So what happened immediately after that, even though we're all muddy and stinky, the owner of the house is this old Japanese lady. And she looks at me and she goes, da 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 in Japanese, pointing at me. And the translator's like, hey, she wants to hug you. I'm like, what? Oh, yeah, okay. And we hugged, and she started crying.
That's a lot. Japanese people do not hug like that.
That's exactly what she says. She says, I don't hug people. I'm
crazy.
so Japanese.
Yeah.
Like my parents never hugged me. I don't hug my husband. My husband doesn't hug me. I don't hug my child.
It's like, I don't even know how we had sex. But somehow we had a kid.
But yeah, her point was just like the love that she was feeling from us. We didn't say anything about Jesus or God. She's just like wanted to reciprocate that. And how is that not God working?
Yeah.
Right? Between her, whatever issues with.
Yeah. Hugging in Korea too is like almost unheard of.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this because I grew up in a church.
Yeah.
And my family hugs and kisses a lot, right?
In America.
Yeah. And so like I remember I came up to my cousin's husband. He was at his workplace. I gave him a hug. He was like, oh shit. I was like, is that weird?
Everybody can see me.
Yeah. I was like, is that weird? All right.
Yeah.
But then I say it's not my cousin. It's my actually it's Korean. I'm actually her samchun 할아버지. So I'm her grandpa.
Whoa.
But we're like 4 years apart.
Yeah.
Right. So her kid is my grandchild. I'm not yeah, basically.
Right.
So they call it uncle grandpa if you translate it.
Yeah.
And so, but he has to take my hug because I'm technically above him in hierarchy. But people don't know that because he's actually older than me.
Yeah.
So how it works like in Korean structure is even though he's older than me, within the familial structure, I am samchun 할아버지, so I'm above him hierarchy-wise.
Interesting.
So he has to speak to me in formalities, but he's actually 2 years older than me. So before he speaks to me casually, he has to ask me for permission if he can.
Wow.
Which I'm just always freaked out because I'm like, dude,
Just like, just do it,
older
man.
than me, man.
Yeah. But going back to that girl, like so I told her all of this about how God took away my racism for Japanese people.
Yeah.
And then she's like, you talk to God?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what you do when you're praying. You're talking to God.
Yeah.
And she's like, can I talk to God? And I was like, oh, would you like to? Mind you, remember, this is me 2 years out of the church and not trying to do Christian shit. My intentions of even meeting this girl was not exactly Christian, right? And so it's just like, you know what? I'll how about I'll pray for you? And I think for some reason, like there's like, I think God wants to tell you some things, right? And so I'm sitting there and then I'm praying for her. And then I see an image of her playing the piano, but she's just sad. She stops and she sits there sad. And then I'm like, yeah, I feel like I see this image of you. And she was like, oh, I used to play the piano when I was a kid. And I really wanted to do it. And I begged my parents to, hire a teacher. When they did, the teacher abused me. And so I never played piano. And I was like, wow, like.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, about that. And then I'm telling her, like, I think God knows this, about you because he cares about you and, about your passions. And then I was like, okay, let's pray again. And then I see her like with a bow and arrow doing archery, right? And like hitting the bullseye. And so I repeat that. I'm like, yeah, I saw you. She's like, how do you know that? I'm like, what do you mean? She said,
that's so specific.
Yeah. She said she was on the junior Olympic team in archery.
That's crazy.
And, like for the Japan or something.
Wow.
Yeah. Junior Olympic team. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, God knows that about you too.
Suck your dick so hard right now. And that was God's gift to you.
Yeah. But I was like, okay, like one last thing. Like, I feel like I'm okay about talking about this because it happened now. 2012? Yeah, so 13 years. And then the last thing I saw, and I took an extra minute, like in silence, because I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to say this because it sounds so dumb. And because I saw her with big wings flying across the sky, doing barrel rolls and loop-de-loops and just soaring like X-Men, the angel.
Yeah.
Dude, like somebody with wings just doing crazy shit. And then, I was like, this is so stupid. I cannot say this out loud.
Yeah, this was a stretch.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so I saw you with wings, same thing. She's now in shock. Like, how do you know this? I'm like, what? You
I'm
have
an
wings?
X-Men?
Yeah. No, she's like, my secret like fantasy, like when I'm daydreaming, the in and out, is I wish I had wings and I could just fly, like jump off a building and soar and do.
And you're like, this
tricks.
date is over. You're like, hey, you're fucking weird.
But she was like, yeah, I even like researched the physics of it, like how large my wings would have to be to carry my body weight. She's like, she looked into what kind of trench coat or backpack she could wear to hide her wings.
Yeah, this bitch weird as fuck.
Like deep. That's what she was saying. She was like, I don't tell this to anyone because it's just my deep secret fantasy, you know? Like some people wish that they were fairies in a forest or some shit, you know? And some people wish they were rock stars. She was like, wish she could fly. And so I'm like, well, I think God knows this. I don't know this. I think God knows this because he knows you.
Yeah.
And he loves you. And I was like, so if you want to be a Christian right now, do you want to? She was like, yeah. And then we prayed together and I was like, you know, I honestly don't go to church anymore, so I don't know what to do from here.
Yeah.
So,
God also said that you are in my bedroom making out with me and doing crazy shit.
So the thing is later, I think it was like a year later, we ran into each other in K-Town now, and we were both drinking.
She got wings on.
Yeah.
It's like, you made me believe I could fly.
Yeah.
She's just like flapping it.
But later she literally thought that I was just some I don't know what you call
Prophet?
that. Yeah, prophet thing. Like I'm like holy
Fortune
man.
teller, yeah.
She's like, what are you doing? Because I'm drinking. I'm like, what? What was the problem?
Yeah.
You know? Like, so, yeah, like some people like that, like it's tough for something amazing and crazy like that to happen and like have no guidance and have no discipleship either. And so that was one of those things like, I'm not going to invest my time or life being her mentor, you know? And especially within this religious sense, I don't know if it's proper for me as a male to disciple a female either.
Yeah. That's always like only because like I've seen that turn so bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
Every time like a Korean guy wanted this discipleship, like a girl, there was always some evil thought going on in their mind, right? Fucking cheated on their wife, hooked up with the girl that was 10 years younger.
Yeah.
And like because of that, it's very smart of you. It's like, we're not doing this, right? And because if you guys go to a Korean church, I've heard this about Korean churches all the time. I'm not sure about other things outside of Korean churches because I never heard of it, but I'm pretty sure there are people who have similar stories.
Where the youth pastor who's 30 marries someone fresh out of high school.
Yeah.
Because he was their pastor. Like, come on.
It happens so much, dude. It's so funny when you talk about premonition stuff like... Mariel should be fine with this. Mariel one time roasted the shit out of me just like my mom did on accident. Because when she was in Taiwan, she went to a fortune teller, like a palm reader, right? And then the palm reader said that by the time she was a certain age, she was going to meet a man that is a comedian, right? And then we were going to get married, right? And that's exactly what happened. It was me and Mariel. And then she was like, remember what I told you, blah, 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 about this fortune teller? She was like, look at our lives now. And she was like, oh, what else did you ask her? And then I asked her that if the husband that I was going to meet is going to be really handsome. And she says that she told me that he's going to be a good businessman.
He has a great personality. Business-minded.
I was like, yo, I'm going to fly to Taiwan and fuck this lady up, dude. This fucking bitch. And she's just telling me this. I'm like, so did she say it was handsome or what? She said it was going to be a good businessman. Right. I'm like, I got roasted again accidentally. Yeah. I fucking forgot about that shit. But like that lady did like a palm reading. But she did get something wrong. She said that she was going to get married and have kids by in her 20s. Right. That didn't happen. It happened in her 30s. But Mary was always like freaked out by that. She was, oh shit, I met a guy, blah, blah, blah. But then she also thought, too, maybe she planted that in my head. So you might have to thank her. When I met you, it made me want to marry you. I was like, I don't know.
So Mariel had the presence of mind to ask if he was going to be handsome. Yeah.
Is he at least going to be hot?
Yeah.
She was like, he's going to be a good businessman, dude.
Most comedians in Korea, at least when I see, they've got some weird quirk to them, which is the reason why they became comedians.
100%.
They're not like K-pop status.
You don't see good looking Korean.
Yeah, they're
comedians.
very much jesters.
Yeah.
In a sense. Yeah, they had to become clowns, quote unquote.
It doesn't lend to the comedy, like if you're good looking, right? Because
Right.
you're not relatable. And not to say that you have to be ugly to be funny, but then relatability is a huge part of humor,
Right.
right? So, and it's also, humor also comes from a very weird place.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've never experienced these weird things and you're talking about it, it almost sounds like you're very detached,
Right.
right? Because I've also seen like comics who try to put the angle of stuff they don't know about, and it just comes off very disingenuous and weird, right? Like there's like these comics who were talking about like, oh, what it's like being in LA, but they never grew up in LA.
Right.
You know what I'm talking
Right.
about. It's like,
yeah.
and then everybody in the comments are kind of like, that's not even true.
Yeah.
It's like, you stop this nonsense, dude. Like, just talk about what you know about, right? And that's like where the relatability comes. Like somebody like Matt Rife. Matt Rife gets a lot of shit because he's a good-looking guy. But if you look at his older photos, he was actually really ugly.
Yeah.
You're right. His
Some
teeth were
chin
fucked up.
implants,
He got a bunch of
teeth.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's where his humor comes from. He was like a white kid that kind of grew up with a non-white area that had fucked up teeth. You know, his upbringing was a little
Yeah.
fucked up. I was like, ah,
You
that's
look
where
like a
your humor-
twink.
It's like, that's where your humor comes from.
Yeah.
Right? So he wasn't always this good looking.
Right.
It happened later on in life. So even when you see that type of stuff, like even when people are like, you know what's so weird about comics? They talk about Chris D'Elia, right?
Right,
They're like,
right.
oh, he's a good looking guy. I'm like, in what world?
Right.
He looks like a crackhead. He's a funny guy. He looks like a fucking crackhead.
I think there's when you have that type of people, it's like they have to use their charm as their humor, right? Or they use, I don't know. It's not. Yeah, I think it's consistently charm that
Yeah.
gets them in. Yeah,
100%, dude. That's kind of like how women are a lot more forgiving with looks than guys are, right? Women can see past the looks. They can see a lot of the qualities that makes a man attractive, right? And obviously that can work in a negative and positive way. Sometimes people just see, they say like women are gold diggers where they only look at the money,
Right.
blah, 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 whatever. But I feel from what I've seen, obviously we're older than probably a lot of people who are listening to this, is that women can see an attribute in a male, and then that can cover up a lot of the other stuff that they don't really care about, right? So there's like, oh, this guy is funny, dresses nice or whatever, and then that's why a lot of guys will look at, is how the fuck did you get her? And that's why guys always say that, is because if they look at other qualities.
you know. Speaking of that, because I read it in a comment. Someone asked us to speak about this influencer named Sarah Kim, and she has a pastor husband.
Oh, dude.
And they went viral for all the wrong reasons. Like, so
it doesn't help that he looks evil too.
Yeah.
That doesn't help him at all.
Yeah,
He looks like I said, I don't know the guy, and I don't want to speak about him because I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
That's my general feeling too. Like, we don't know them, guys.
Exactly.
But then again, they're public about their life.
True.
Because they're trying to be influencers.
influencers.
But then to be that open, right? And because, look, there's one thing to be vulnerable and open to be influential, but you also open up the doors for criticism,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think, because they're so super strong Christians, they believe that this kind of confession opens up to their audience about how real they are, without realizing a majority of this westernized world will instantly judge you for that and not see you speaking on these things because you've grown,
Yeah.
right? And so the issue now is that this dude doesn't make any money because he's a pastor. The issue is, in the past, he has a video game obsession as well. The other issue is that she paid for his entire master's degree,
Oh shit.
and like her dad doesn't like him at all.
Most Korean parents, when they hear
You're
about
gonna marry a pastor.
a pastor, there's two feelings, right? I'm glad you found God, but two, my daughter is going to struggle so fucking
Yeah.
much because of you.
Yeah.
Which is like it's such a weird thing because they're very proud that you married a pastor, but they also hate the fact that you married a pastor.
Yeah, like you're asking for your life to be hard.
Yeah.
And then now that it's happening, I think her dad is just like, but then once again, like I was going through it like, okay, then what are people talking about, right? Was that even her name, Sarah Kim? I don't remember, but
I don't know, Esther Park.
yeah, it's interchangeable.
Yeah, Grace. So
Yeah, Grace.
Yeah.
Eunice.
Eunice Cho.
But, you know, for me, as I was looking at it, it was like this either white Australian or English girl, I forget, talking about like like doing the whole timeline of what's going on. And the whole time I'm watching is like, this is none of our fucking business.
Yeah, that's how I honestly felt about it, right? And I'm not showing favoritism because they're Korean. It's just that every time I saw a clip of people breaking down their stuff, it's literally a snippet of their lives, right?
And they don't affect anything in your life.
Yeah.
You're just into the drama of it.
Exactly. So they kind of look at him as it's loser or whatever, whatnot. Like I said, it's so hard for me to, because I went through some of their videos to see. It's like, oh, this might be an interesting podcast topic. And I'm like, this seems very much like a small portion of their relationship that either they work through or they're talking about for, pastor type of deal stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I know that for just like, well, look at this evidence. You guys, stop being fucking losers, guys. Like, you got to not do that.
I think it's because also in the westernized Christian world, they think pastors are also supposed to be rich.
Yeah.
But when you go through an Asian lens, it's no, you're supposed to be poor.
Yeah, you're supposed to be poor. You're not supposed to make a lot of money. Which I know that I could go on this podcast and I could say like, well, this guy has a game addiction while his wife is working all day. What a fucking loser is that?
Yeah.
True. I agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Right. But once again, it's hard for me to judge somebody without more context. I need more context. I need to see more other than the stuff that they're purposefully telling you, like this is what they're going through, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of people have to they're like body language experts and they're reading into things. I don't want to place judgment on their relationship because they're in the relationship together. They're still married.
She's pregnant.
And they're still talking about what they're going through. So it seems like it's purposeful what they're doing.
And the end goal for all this drama is, what do you want?
Yeah.
You want them to split up? You want this pastor to face the shame of being divorced early? You want the mother to be a single mother, to this child? Like, what do you guys want? They're obviously working through their shit, which is why they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's insane to me, like, to take that out of context.
Yeah.
So they use the clip where it's clear that, I mean, maybe the problem is when pastors try to be stand-up comedians, because he's trying to be funny.
I saw that clip.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the tomato? That's where the tomato will come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just preach.
Yeah. Because he's like, I mean, it's self-deprecating, but then he's kind of making a joke out of his wife nagging him and his poor Korean speaking skills.
He sounds like a guy that plays a lot of games.
Yeah. Now, the issue is he's mic'd. There's no crowd mic because it's a church.
Yeah.
We don't know if the crowd, if he's going on and on and on because he hears them laughing and then playing more into it, right? So we don't know that. I get bothered by when people take these clip snippets of someone giving a sermon, which might be a 30 to an hour long sermon, just and then take that one part and say, look how abusive and publicly he shames his wife.
Yeah.
Without seeing the sarcasm behind it either. Yeah. So as soon as I saw that and I saw these people who it doesn't affect their lives at all, I'm just like.
Also, too, like those the young people on TikTok who's doing this, it's like, you're not doing this because you want to save her. You're doing this because you want the views.
You're getting the views out of their misery.
Exactly.
You piece of shit.
Exactly. So like when I kept seeing this, I was like, damn. We always say this too. It's like, you think you're going to heaven? You're not, dude. Yeah. You're not. Like, your fucking heart is dark as shit.
Yeah.
It's not out of concern. You do it like it's a murder mystery. So it turns out, but it's like, so as you were trying to help this woman, you thought of the best way for this to go viral. You thought about the music, you did everything else.
Yeah.
You gotta cut that shit out, dude. Like I said, things might unfold where it's some serious shit. Then what, are you happy that you're right?
Yeah.
Are you happy that this is happening to her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's not enough context, and like the stuff that's taken out of context is kind of egregious. So
to say like, we just want her to be safe. Who says she's not safe?
Yeah.
Why are they talking about this then? Unless she could have just been like, help me, I'm being abused.
Yeah.
Like, no, she's speaking directly to him like, I need a provider.
And they're together, and then she's like standing up for herself.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she seems to like know what she's doing.
So what do you guys want?
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, I saw a clip too where she was like, yeah, in my life, I would have thought that would I have liked a man who could have, provided for me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if somebody's abused, you wouldn't say that to your abuser, to your face in public. You know what I mean? In a video for a million people to see.
Yeah.
Sounds like she knows what the fuck she's doing.
Yeah.
Right? And sounds like they both know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe it's because we grew up in a Korean church and that's kind of what we've seen.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. I like I said, I understand why people would be concerned in this context, but it seems like it's very purposeful on their part.
She sounds a little more old school too,
Yes.
in that way, right? So she sounds more conservative than others. And so you have an entire liberal generation telling her, you deserve better, you need to do more, all that. When like we grew up in that context, seeing like, the 사모님s, pastor wives, who do a lot of serving.
Yes. Let me give you an example. Like my mother,
Yeah.
right? She did a lot of serving for the church. She made the 한글학교, so Korean school sandwiches, and we all did that in the house together. So
Yeah.
I would assemble these sandwiches and these Capri Suns or whatever in the pack for the morning for all the Korean school kids to eat. My mom would do that after working like fucking 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right? And then at church, she would cook for the church after. So she worked 7 days a week for damn near fucking like 20 years. Right? And that was a part of her service of being the pastor's wife.
Yeah.
By the way, my mom curses like a sailor.
Yeah.
So if somebody saw that, like, oh, not today's context, like she was a slave to her husband, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then my mom too, it's not like when she did it, she didn't tell my dad he was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck you, I hate this shit.
I think if you're not religious and you see a religious person doing this, they can't see it as a way of their religious duty.
Yes.
They don't see that. They see, oh my God, slavery.
Yeah, because
Right?
when I asked my mom about this too, because when I started cooking myself and I was cooking for friends, I'm cooking for like 3-4 people, fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's like, how the fuck did you cook for 200 people?
Yeah.
And she goes, it was just what the church needed.
Yeah.
And I stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, there's a weird disconnect with, liberalism in a way where it's like, hey, let them wear their head coverings. Let them have their religious freedom. And then when someone's practicing a religious freedom of serving, like, that's abuse.
Slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird space to be in. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's why it's so funny. You and I felt the same way about it. That's why I was like, I can't. Like, a lot of people said it to me.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Ton.
Yeah.
Like I said, his eyebrows don't help him. His eyebrows look so evil. Yeah. He looks like a Korean demon.
Yeah.
I understand.
He just sounded like a clueless Korean dude, not thinking that 13 hours of video gaming is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of people who aren't pastors who are like that too.
Yeah.
But then, and he's obviously working on it.
Yeah, I think it was curtailed now.
Yeah.
Like that's like something he doesn't
It
do
was
now.
the tense that they were speaking in, the past tense.
Yeah, and now he doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
He's like a lot better for it. So I was like, oh, I thought he was still doing it.
Yeah.
I thought he was still gaming 13 hours a day, but he seems to have stopped it. So that's quite an improvement.
Yeah, in a sense, then you would tell the dude, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't serve at an Asian churches anymore.
Yeah.
Go to a white church where they'll give you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and be hated for another reason.
Yeah. Well, guys, that wraps up this episode of the podcast. You can catch Jesus Brain every Sundays at 12 p.m. You can catch Ed at Ed Park VP and Manga Miata. Check that shit out. He's working on car stuff. Obviously, he's in his getup, so he's on his way.
I'm going to go to church, not church. I'm going to go to school after
Car
this.
church.
Yeah.
Jesus Brain every Sunday at 12 p.m. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.